Joining us now is Fox News contributor Ben Domenech. Ben, the right doesn't even get it right when it's their turn to bat. You got Brennan and Blackman and Souter and Warren and John Paul Stevens. I mean, those were all, I think, GOP picks. And even recently, Elizabeth Warren's beloved Customer Financial Protection Bureau was saved by justices appointed by Republicans. So, I mean, really, the world's going to end if another Republican justice gets appointed?
Look, all these people live in this fantasy world where the Republican justices who are appointed are somehow these abject partisans who can't be counted on to have heterodox opinions on anything. And of course, as you said there have been a number of choices where I feel like past Republican presidents have just gotten it wrong. Look, I wish that you could raise the funds to send Sheldon Whitehouse a book on the separation of powers. I really doubt that he'd be able to make his way through it and understand it. But he especially can't understand the meaning of the flags hung outside of the Alito home as being anything other than a useful bat to go after these justices with. There's one more subtext, though, Trey, and that's that when I listen to Jill Biden complaining, I listen to that as being a complaint directed at Sonia Sotomayor, who, if they actually wanted to, really push to try to make a difference at this point, there are a lot of Democrats who wish that she would have stepped down already, frankly, so that they would have an option to name someone younger to her seat. And so the pressure, I think, to expand the court to engage in completely ridiculous, unlawful, unconstitutional, and really, anti-balanced behavior in terms of the way that Democrats have approached this issue, I think that that's definitely going to happen if Democrats are able to win back the White House with Joe Biden and win the Senate as well.
Ben, that's a great point, and it's also really rich that Justice Sotomayor is too old, but Joe Biden's husband is not. I want you and I to do something I never thought we'd do together, which is listen to a guy from Chicago lecture us about ethics.
Justice Alito is not paying attention to his responsibility to the court and to the American people. He can't play fast and loose with these political symbols without jeopardizing his own integrity.
I think the question is, how many MAGA battle flags does a Supreme Court justice have to fly until the rest of the court takes it seriously?
Should he recuse? Should he recuse?
Absolutely. Of course he should.
Hey, Ben, if you can keep a secret, I have no idea what flags fly on my front porch. My wife is in charge of all of that. I couldn't tell you which flags fly. I mean, honestly, that's what's on their mind is what flags fly at a Supreme Court justice's house. I mean,
well,
what
who gets to define
either one of theirs?
Who gets to define what a MAGA battle flag is? I remember a couple of years ago when Colin Kaepernick went after Nike for having the Betsy Ross flag. Where I live in a historical area, I see those flags all over the place in an area that's so blue that, I mean, it would, crawl over broken glass to vote for Joe Biden again. It's something that I think is absolutely ridiculous here. It's ahistorical. And when Sheldon Whitehouse says things like that, he knows exactly what he's doing, which is taking American history that should unite us around our founders and around a founding generation that fought a revolution for our freedom. This is a flag, in the case of the Appeal to Heaven flag, the pine tree flag, that actually was flying in front of San Francisco City Hall and had for years prior to this whole controversy. Who knew that they were flying a MAGA battle flag all along? Apparently that's something that they needed to correct. But that's the kind of ahistorical situation that we're dealing with here, where they will seek out anything to weaponize it against a court that they can't stand has a number of constitutionalists on it.
I just find it so rich that they criticize judges like Judge Cannon down in Florida and Supreme Court justices when they don't like the outcome, but then they criticize Republicans who even frown at judicial rulings. So the duplicity is even too much for me. And I'm a lawyer, and it's too much for me. Ben Domenech, thank you for joining us on a Sunday night.
Good to be with you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.